Hello. Welcome to Chapter 2, Part 2, where we will do a very brief discussion of what you need to know about some of the newer theories of development. Please recall that a developmental theory is a group of ideas, assumptions, and generalizations that interpret and illuminate the thousands of observations that have been made about human growth. Developmental theories really provide frameworks for us for explaining patterns and problems of development. And as we mentioned in the first lecture, rarely do we rely on just one theory. Most developmentalists are integrating ideas from more than one source. In this brief overview of newer theories, I'm going to introduce some of the new cognitive ways of thinking, information processing theory, and what we might call neo-cognitive theories. I'll also touch upon evolutionary theory, and these newer theories will be presented throughout your text. Information processing theory is a newer version of cognitive theory that emerged beginning in the 60s, but really took hold more in the 70s and 80s. In information processing theory, the human thinking process is considered to be something like how a computer thinks, where there are inputs, data are analyzed, there are connections amongst data, some information or data is stored as memories, and some information is actually moved into an output mode, such as by expressing yourself verbally or through reading or writing. In information processing theory, the focus is on what is thought about. How do we biologically have a new idea? How, when, why, and where do these neurons fire, and how do they connect with each other to the point that we can have a coherent thought that we could share with others? So information processing theory is very much grounded in brain science, very much involved in trying to understand how our nervous system and our brain operates at a very, very basic level, which can then lead to the complex thinking and behaving that we see in humans. As we'll talk about in future classes, contemporary information processing theorists could be referred to as neuroscientists, and they are often using highly sophisticated methods for observing the activity in the brain and then studying connections between brain activity and behavior, or brain activity and thinking. So what you see on this slide are some of the various ways of measuring brain activity, which you don't need to know the specifics of, but if you are interested in brain and behavior connections, you may find this set of theories particularly intriguing. Neo-cognitive theorists are less involved with brain science and a bit more involved with thinking about what's going on around the person that is stimulating their way of thinking. So in a way, the neo or new cognitive theories are kind of taking Vygotsky and merging Vygotsky with some of the other theories that we see even from behaviorism, social learning theory, and psychoanalytic, where you are bringing the whole person in to the learning process, thinking about how all aspects of culture are going to impact an individual's growth, and also thinking about how you think, how you use language is also going to influence how you interact with others. So to a neocognitivist and to a neocognitive theorist, the domains that we've talked about of psychobiological, cognitive, psychosocial, those are less discrete and more likely to interact. Then finally, evolutionary theory is a new way of thinking, relatively new, believe it or not, that has integrated evolutionary biology with psychological principles. So in evolutionary theory, it suggests that we develop because we have these two drives that we have to attend to. We are all motivated to survive, and to an evolutionary theorist, we're motivated to reproduce. So therefore, it's thought that human beings behave in such a way that they'll have a greater likelihood of surviving and being successful and reproducing. This concept is called selective adaptation. That just like other organisms or living things, that human beings selectively develop certain traits that will make it more likely that they survive and reproduce. and that genetic variations occur which are particularly beneficial to the human beings that have them, and that as those genetic variations make their way into the population, humanity as a whole will go through an evolutionary process and become stronger in those selected ways. So, evolutionary theory tries to connect our biological imperatives with the way we behave and treat each other. Some of the interesting topics in evolutionary theory are things like altruism or helping others. At what point is that adaptive? What if you are helping another person to the point that your own safety and security is at risk? Is that still adaptive? So those are the sorts of questions that we'll tackle when we cover evolutionary theory in future classes. So to conclude, we have classic theories that we discussed that include a variety of assumptions and topics, things from psychoanalytic to behavioral, social learning, and cognitive. We also have some new theories: evolutionary, neuroscience, neocognitive, other ways of thinking that can be merged with our older way of thinking or can take us down a brand new pathway. Thank you for your time and attention. You'll find that we refer to these theories throughout, so I encourage you to read Chapter 2 with care. Thanks.